Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at the recent political developments. As the International Labour Day is being observed today also in Pakistan, there is being a lot of discussion around the negotiations between the PTI and of course the coalition partners, with of course two sessions already being held last week as per the Supreme Court's directions. But there's also of course the third and the final round that is being spoken about, which is going to be held tomorrow, that is going to bring perhaps the real picture. It seems that the leaders of both the sides, the way that they have been speaking to the media and reporting around the discussions of the negotiations, it seems that there may be a certain question marks that are being raised about whether or not these talks are going to be successful. We do hear some hopeful messages also coming in through from the leaders, but it still seems to be something that is now being boiled down to what the PTI chief has talked about regarding an ultimatum of May 14 that he's given, that the assemblies need to be dissolved before this particular date, and if so, then the PTI is going to be moving forward with simultaneous elections taking place in the country. This of course is something that is being rejected so far by the coalition partners by claiming that it is not something which is practical, and this is something that the coalition partners are not going to be able to do, and that the elections need to be held after the budget is presented, which is in June, and that after that the elections can be held. But of course the PTI is insisting on a much earlier date. At the same time, we also know that efforts are underway by the PTI regarding what they're saying is a plan B or a strategy that is going to be put in place in case there is failure of talks, and there are also reports with regards to the rallies that were held and are being planned throughout the three cities as mentioned by the PTI leaders that are part of what Mr. Fawad Chaudhry has also called the movement for the people to be prepared for in case the announcement by the PTI chief is not responded with positively by the ruling alliance. And this is of course something that brings into question mark the entire discussion around the final round, because it seems that the announcement of May 14th and the dissolution of assemblies before that is not something that is possible, and so perhaps the resolution regarding the success of the talks is also something which is now put under question. So we're going to be taking a look at the current situation and what this means in light of what is going on between both the political parties, and then of course the Supreme Court's directions of May 14, and what sort of possible scenarios can exist with regards to the PTI's actions and how the ruling government is also prepared for them. For this and more, we're going to be joined online by our guests, Mr. Ali Rashid Leader, PPP. We've also been joined by Ms. Batool Rajput, who's a journalist, and we're going to be joined on telephone line by Barrister Abdullah Mumtaz, who's leader PTI. Thank you very much, everyone, for being a part of the show. And let me start with you, Mr. Ali Rashid. The discussions around what is going on seem to be bringing in different pictures with regards to whether or not the talks are being successful or not. And there is one way to look at it when we talk about hope or optimism. But with regards to two sessions being held and the final one to be held tomorrow, and at the same time, the announcement coming in from the PTI chief of dissolution of assemblies before the 14th of May, what do you think, in your opinion, is the likelihood of the success of the so-called final round tomorrow?
Thank you for having me on your show. I'm very hopeful for the sake of Pakistan that the talks would be successful. And it is very unfortunate that while negotiation and talks are going on, Mr. Khan needs to give sweeping statements regarding taking people out on the roads. But I do understand the narrative he's trying to build, and the kind of narrative in the past when he has said that I can sit with the TTP, I can sit with people from Balochistan, the Balochistan Liberation Army, I can sit with people from the Sindhu Desh, but I will not sit with the PDM government, coalition government, to discuss anything, because these are thieves, according to him. But now he's actually sitting on the table with them. So I think it's more of an election campaign kind of ploy, where he's still a lot of big talk from him that, you know, if things don't work out, we'll come out on the roads. But look, see, let's be realistic. It won't be possible. May 14th, what is the PDM government saying? That let's give the budget, which is one of the conditions of IMF, by the way, that the government needs to give the budget, and then only things will be, uh, why he wants to further destabilize the economy by saying that have it by the May 14th, which is realistically not even possible. The Election Commission can't do it. Uh, IMF and other challenges, the security issues. There are a lot of things to be done when elections are to be conducted, and he also knows that. So I think he's just making a mockery out of things. I think he should stay quiet while the negotiation and the talks are going on. And I'm hopeful that we'll come to some kind of middle ground where we can work out things.
All right. Let me also bring in the discussion, Barrister Abdullah Mumtaz, with regards to, of course, the PTI's announcement. It's important because this is where we are taking a look at what the situation is like at the moment, and then, of course, whether or not that this ultimatum is going to be upheld by the ruling coalition, and whether or not the PTI is itself going to stick to this stance. But I believe we haven't still connected with Barrister Saab, and I'll come back to you with this question. But Ms. Batool, the conditions around the political scenarios that we have seen so far, it's been going on since the former Prime Minister's ouster, and we've heard their different statements coming in and different sort of announcements coming in from the PTI chief, and from the early elections to now standing in May with regards to elections already scheduled for October. What do you see in terms of the situation, and what sort of possibilities exist for the political parties to emerge from this in a successful way? Because really, right now, who do you think is coming out strong?
I believe shortly I'll say that nobody is going to be stronger, particularly in this situation, politically or otherwise socially, in the eyes of voters. But primarily, what I want to establish is that in any political turmoil or in any situation, the most important thing is to talk. Even countries, they do talk during wars. Diplomacy do work during wars. There is a war diplomacy, but unfortunately, in Pakistan, in the last 72 years, this has been the most unprecedented, unpredictably difficult situation that we are in from the last 1 year. This is ridiculous and amazing and surprising and worrisome at the same time that in 2022 it was Imran Khan who wanted the vote of confidence, and he was running away from the no confidence. And right after 1 year, this is another prime minister who thinks that the vote of confidence would work anyways in his favor. But I don't think so that this is going to happen. What exactly we need is to uh, to finish or to remove or to deal with this polarization that we do have within our institutions. Nobody is going to win when Pakistan is not winning. When we don't have money to rollbacks, when we don't have money for external financing, when our friendly countries are even reluctant to give us money, even I'll quote a figure here that we even need $34 billion more in coming year. How are we going to manage that? Nobody is thinking about it. We all see on the media that the most important thing is the staff level agreement with IMF, but this is not the most important thing that we should think and we should discuss on. The most important thing is that the IMF is not going to have another agreement with the interim governments. IMF need IMF needs a regularized, normal setup, normal administration to and a long-term setup to negotiate, and that is only possible once we are get out of this. Once we are out of this situation, and it doesn't seem to work anyways because nobody is willing to show any kind of flexibility. Uh, we are very excited about Tuesday. I have seen a lot of articles from the last 1 week that what is going to happen on Tuesday, and this is going to be final round, and this is going to be something that we are waiting for. But what we saw and what we witnessed um, on Friday late night hours, I think that is a slap on our expectations. I'm sorry, I have to say this. This is disappointing for the people who have gone as representatives of respective parties. And in my programs from the last 2 days, surprisingly, I'm hearing that they're disappointed. The MNAs are disappointed. The MPs are
Hmm.
disappointed. They're literally saying that we were not aware of the fact that why did it happen with the president of Pakistan, Tehreek-e-Insaf? Why did it happen with the ex-CM of Punjab? So I believe that this unawareness and this least connections between bureaucracy and
Right.
administration and the state institutions, that who is going to take the decision, it is going to affect the negotiations, and it is affecting the
Right,
negotiations.
absolutely, and Ms. Batool, I'm glad that you talked about the progress of the country and the importance of taking a look at what is good for the country, because that, of course, needs to be the ultimate priority, and hopefully is for our decision makers. But when we take a look at the situation realistically, do you think it's going to be even possible for us to be in a scenario where, specifically with regards to the IMF, as you mentioned as well, to be in a position which is going to be better for the country? And what really is that? Is that elections before the budget, or is that elections at a later date and the budget being handled by the current setup?
See, Sana, I cannot put my desire forward. I cannot say exactly what I want, but I really wanted, and I really believed as a journalist a few months back that elections is the only situation. But be practical. If you look around and if you see the preparation of the relevant authorities, Election Commission has already said that in court that they don't have money. Even when we were doing programs and we were waiting for 30th April or 14th May, we were expecting that the Supreme Court is going to implement its order anyways through Article 190. And when I used to ask this question in my programs, that I don't think so that government is ready or government wants to conduct elections. The people who had this grip on law, they said Supreme Court knows how to implement its order. Nobody is going to come in Supreme Court's way, but we saw the reverse. Nothing happened. No elections. Even we don't see any consensus on census. Uh, uh,
Right.
it shows that they need to talk, and what comes up, it's just a surprise for all of us,
Right,
but
absolutely.
there
And,
is
and I understand your point. And let me take Mr. Ali Rashid's opinion on that as well, because there are, of course, question marks being raised, and they were raised even earlier before the PTI was talking about whether or not the government or the current political setup is ready for elections or not. But we are, of course, seeing that this is something that is being reiterated again and again. It is, of course, the offer of dialogue that hasn't been denied or not put forward by the current political setup, but in fact by the PTI. But in terms of the question marks that is being raised, particularly that what Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi also spoke about, pointing out the former president Asif Ali Zardari as well, saying that the PPP always stood by the constitution, why they're not doing the same right now. How would you respond to such statements questioning the credibility of not just the PPP but also the political setup in terms of violating the constitutions or running away from elections?
Look, I don't think anybody is running away from elections, nor are they violating the Constitution. I think the Supreme Court is there, and if they want to implement anything, or if they feel, um, if they're evaluating the decision which they had given earlier, that's a different story altogether. But in my opinion, the fact that you're rushing into election while the election commission is not prepared, you're setting yourself up for another disaster. Say if we were to listen to the PTI and go into election immediately, drop everything, dissolve the assemblies, not wait for IMF, don't not give the budget, create issues with the IMF where they may hold the tranche which is supposed to come with the staff level with the money which we really need right now. People are having a lot of difficulties. There are more important things at stake right now. The PTI had four years, and look the kind of mess they've gotten us in. So at least be patient. What difference will it make? I mean, if I appeal to the common man, I ask them, why May? Why not just the budget is next month? Why not just do it after the budget? What is the urgency? What will one
Right, but
month
what,
achieve?
what the
It's like a
PTI chairman
child.
is saying is that if the current political setup announces the budget, there may be a possibility that someone else has to carry the weight of it. That is the reason he's claiming.
If the Sorry, I don't understand your question.
If the
If
current political setup is the one that presents the budget, there is a possibility that there is going to be someone else who has to carry the weight of it, believing, of course, that if they come in power, then they'll have to carry the weight of the budget.
Well, I think that's really childish. If he thinks that way, I think anybody who comes into power will have to carry the weight. and he should be prepared for it. If he feels he's going to come in power, if Mr. Khan thinks he'll be forming the next government, he was in power for 4 years, and he should be ready to clean up the mess which he got us in. He should not shy away from it. He shouldn't be afraid of taking taking on the challenge. Look at us as a PDM government, or at least with PPP and all the coalition partners. 4 years, we're not sulking and crying like him that, oh, the past government did this. We're taking on the challenges head on. We're dealing with the IMF, we're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with a lot of issues. We got Pakistan from the grey list of FATF back, we're not there anymore. So we are working, we are focusing on these things while he's trying to distract us, detract us. He's coming out on the roads, he's creating a nuisance, yet we are on track and we're trying to fix things for the people of Pakistan. And if he says he is so faint hearted that he feels that the burden of the budget will be on the next government, then, well, too bad, then deal with it, then go home. Then why are you in politics if you can't take these kind of challenges, if you're so faint hearted?
Right. Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi also spoke about the government's coalition team, particularly Mr. Khwaja Asif and Mr. Javed Latif, and the kind of statements that have been coming out with regards to specifically Mr. Javed Latif also pointing out that conversations or negotiations need not to be held with terrorists, and this is something that is moving towards a point where they are not really serious about negotiations or the success of the talks. And what Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi is claiming that this is giving a hindrance to the conversation. But it's obviously not just the political setup side that's the problem. It seems that there is a similar kind of rhetoric coming in from the PTI side as well. In this scenario, what do you think is going to be the possible success of the talks? Can we really imagine then the team to sit together and have a discussion as normal? Is that how things go? Mr. Rashid?
You see, the problem with PTI is that there are a lot of different groups. Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahab has a different lobby, then there's Fawad Chaudhry, etc. They come from a different school of thought, and there are different groups. And a lot of them are not happy with the talks which are happening. They're trying to create hindrances. In my opinion, when you are in negotiation, when some of the talks are taking place, giving any statements till you reach a conclusion is very irresponsible. Don't you think? Don't you agree with me? I mean, in my opinion, it's very textbook. If you are negotiating and if responsible people nominated from the parties are having off record, secret or not official on record negotiations, let those negotiations take place. Why do you have to come on the media every time and give sweeping statements and create problems? You're just creating more political uncertainty, which is harming the country, which is confusing people. Nobody wants to invest in Pakistan. Look, if the economy is going to improve, there'll be either through the FDI, foreign direct investment, either we increasing our exports by the industrialists doing well, or either dollars coming in. But none of these things will happen if there's political instability. And PTI has done nothing in the past 4 to 5 years but create havoc, create chaos, create instability, be out on the roads, blame the other governments. And finally, you have a government which is willing to work and is working, and they're not letting us work. They're creating problems, and they just, till the last breath. I mean, I think even they will be happy if you, whatever the official election date is right now, if you tell them we'll do election 2 days earlier, they're acting like such children that they'll be happy with that. Oh, we're fine. Just do it 2 days earlier, but just, just listen to us.
Right, understood. Ms. Batool, the conversation around the failure of talks is also something that has been going on for quite some time now. And I want to understand, when we talk about the possibility of the success of the talks and then the possibility of failure as well, it seems that there is a lot that is being discussed as what is going to happen if the talks fail in perhaps a threatening manner, that this is going to then cause a lot of trouble for the other side. What do you think about those statements coming in, particularly the Plan B that the PTI side has also spoken about?
See, this is very disappointing. Yes. This is very disappointing when we hear politicians calling names like terrorists, and even very senior people, they have spoken to each other like this on live televisions and during their interviews, that we cannot speak to terrorists. We can talk to political parties, but we cannot negotiate with terrorists. This is not the way. This is not the way a country can be run, or diplomacy can be created. Anyways, no, I think we need to have bigger hearts. Everybody in the politics, and particularly if when it comes from the government, it's more discouraging. See, the position of opposition in politics is absolutely 180 degrees as position of government. So we do expect these kind of words from we can expect these kind of words from opposition, but when the ruling elite, or when the ruling parties, they do talk like that, this is very discouraging, and the trickle and its trickle down effects is highly
Right, but
undemocratic.
don't you think the
So
onus is
I
on
don't
both
think
the
so.
sides to respect that?
What? Can you repeat that, please?
Don't you think the onus is on both the sides to respect this decorum? It's not just the ruling alliance. Yes.
Exactly. But my point is, when you are in government, you have to have more responsibility. This is how the things are. In opposition, it is not. It is expected that you can be aggressive, or you can use harsh words. But when you're in government, I think there should be more grace. This is what I think. And we,
Okay.
as citizens, we do more expect from government. And on the other hand, that you said that if negotiations fail in the history of Pakistan, we have seen that there has always been third force that has taken advantage of these weaknesses of politicians. If you read Ayub Khan's book, Friends Not Masters, if you read Naseem Zehra's book, it's about Kargil operation. If you read Aslam Mirza's book, it's recently published. I'm just giving you a few examples. If you read Chaudhry Shujat's book, it's recently published. It's his biography. uh, the answer is very simple, that if you leave the room, somebody is going to enjoy that space, so you better not leave that room. And if Tuesday is not going to be conclusive, if Tuesday is not going to be full of results, or with the direction, I don't think so that we can keep enjoying this news about being apolitical, because
Right.
unfortunately in our political system, the parties, they really look up to the establishment. They really look up to translate the signals that they get from establishment. And unfortunately or fortunately, they're not getting any kind of signals. That's
Okay.
why they're getting more confused. So I think that they need to be decisive this time. They need to rely on their own, and they need to think independently. If
All
they
right.
won't think independently, we will stay in this chaos.
All right, absolutely. Let me also welcome in the debate Barrister Abdullah Mumtaz, who's joined us on telephone line. Thank you very much for joining us and being a part of the discussion. With regards to the PTI chief's announcement of May 14th, let me begin with understanding how serious this particular announcement is, because we've been hearing deadlines before as well. Is there any room for negotiation? Is this what some are saying, a suggestion and not a deadline or an ultimatum? Which is it?
Thank you for having me on your show. The deadline that's been given by Mumtaz is a very serious deadline, and it's been given to the government to inform them that they have until the 14th of May to dissolve the National Assembly. The thing is that Punjab and KPK are both without legislative houses since the first week of January. We know legislative in both provinces. The constitutional mandate states that both provinces should have assemblies within 90 days. Elections should happen. Elections have not happened. In both provinces, Election Commission of Pakistan has dilly-dallied, made up absurd reasons. The matter has ended up in the courts, and the courts have given a judgment, the Lahore High Court and the Supreme Court, that the elections must be held within 90 days. Now, it is very clear that the executive, this is the PM government, the fascist government in Islamabad, is not willing to hold any elections, is willing to abrogate the Constitution of Pakistan to show that they are powerful, whereas in fact they're not powerful at all. And furthermore, what is more disturbing is fascist tactics that are being employed on the opposition in Pakistan, especially the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. We're seeing that Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf supporters are being picked up. Ali Amin Gandapur is being paraded around the whole of Pakistan like a circus animal, despite the fact that he's on bail. We've also got the Pervez Bai's house being ransacked the other night by an armored vehicle, and what imagery is being displayed to the people outside Pakistan. I mean, if people on bail are being treated like this, imagine how would the person be treated if he was not on bail. So such fascism, torture, inhumane and degrading treatment is being meted out by the regime to try and quash the protest. But the fact of the matter is, this regime has already lost the plot. The people of Pakistan will be on the street. The inflation is at an all-time high. The industries are closed.
Right, absolutely, Barrister Saab, and I understand the situation, but I want to focus on the talks and whether or not the PTI seems that they're going to be successful. And then also with regards to the 14th of May, is there no room if the deadline or the date of 14th of May passes and the assemblies are not dissolved? Does that mean that there is going to be no more discussion with the ruling alliance?
There will be no more discussion with the ruling alliance, and we're already feeling that the is very disingenuous. It has no inclination to try and dissolve the assembly before that, and it is a pure recipe for a crisis. We're already in the midst of an economic crisis and a constitutional one, and this would be a much bigger crisis than the two. Yes.
Right, and Barrister Saab, I also want to reiterate this once again, because there's also reports coming in about the budget also being an issue. Of course, the ruling alliance is of the opinion that after the budget is presented, we can then have elections later on, but the PTI is insisting on an earlier date. Is the issue with regards to the 14th of May can possibly be changed if the dissolution of assemblies or whatever demand the PTI is putting forward is done before the budget? Because there are two stances coming out, that the deadline is the budget or the 14th of May. Which one is it?
The thing is that the Constitution of Pakistan has been abrogated. We have no legislative houses in Punjab or the KPA. And what I find so shocking is that the PDM, despite having abrogated the clear provision, is really adamant to have a budget in here. I mean, what's the importance of a budget when you don't have legislative houses in Punjab or KPA? I mean, if you want to continue this status quo, artificial status quo in these provinces, the matter is, what is the status of the caretaker setup in Punjab and KPA? Are they illegal? They are illegal. The setup should only be here for 90 days. And it's a much bigger question than the budget of Pakistan.
Right. Barrister Saab, there's also reports coming in that the PTI has a strategy in place in case the talks fail, and it seems that this is what the expectation is with regards to tomorrow's final round as well. And if that actually happens, what is really the strategy behind it? We've heard talks about a movement of the people, strategy or a plan B that is going to be employed. What exactly is that? Can you help us understand a bit more?
Well, first of all, we're hoping that the PTI some sense and agrees to the deadline being given by PTI in this regard. But if it sticks to its battle line as it has been doing for the past 2 months, the thing is, the PTI will have many strategies. It will have a legal strategy. It will have a strategy for Pakistan. There will be dharnas happening all over Pakistan. The people of Pakistan will be on the street because the people's right to vote is being undermined in Pakistan, and they will not be allowing an artificial fascist government to try and take their right to vote. They're already not being given their basic services in Pakistan. Law and order is at an all-time low. There's no medication. There's no utilities being provided to them, and to add further insult to injury, their vote is being taken as well. So this means that there will be further chaos in Pakistan, and the ball is in the PM's court to try and defeat this crisis as quickly as it can and hold elections in Pakistan.
All right. All right. With regards to what Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi has said, he's raised question marks regarding Mr. Khwaja Asif and Javed Latif and the statements that have been coming out. Is there any particular specific issue with regards to the team that is part of the ruling alliance? Is there any individual the problem that exists with the individuals, or is it a broader sense of what is being discussed?
Well, the thing is that the PKM is a house divided. You have Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who is president of the Pakistan PPM, and he himself is like he's totally against talk. We have Maryam Nawaz, who's also against talk. We have Khwaja Asif, who those who get elections will not be happening in October. Then we have this environment that I described, which is not an enabling environment in which PTI protesters and supporters have been picked up left, right, center by the fascist force in Islamabad. They're trying to derail the talk. So when you have such a situation, it's a miracle to the talk surviving and something coming out of it. But despite that, we're still holding out on hope that the senior voices in the PTM will prevail and think about greater Pakistan, and so they will try to avoid any further deadlock, any further crisis in Pakistan.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Barrister, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Mr. Ali Rashid, with regards to what was being discussed, particularly the issue of the JUIF chief, who's reiterated his stance once again and has talked about his own mass contact campaign to be launched in the country soon. And he is, of course, of the opinion that the conversation around with the PTI shouldn't be held. And it seems that nobody has still been able to convince him. What do you think about this particular aspect with regards to the coalition partners not really all of them being aligned with how this negotiation process is moving forward?
I feel I do understand. Well, his point of view is respected, and we're still trying to convince him. But that being said, the talks with the PDM is going forward, right? 2 rounds have taken place. The third round is tomorrow. It's not like just because he's not in favor of it, we're not doing it, because in PDM, what the MOU or the understanding which we have is like whatever the majority of parties want to do, the PDM will do that. We do understand and we respect his point of view, and he's entitled to his opinion. But that being said, the talks are going on, so I think it's immaterial, the fact that whatever he's saying at this point in time, because the talks are ongoing. Also,
right, but possibly,
PTI,
don't you think this could be a point of a rift between the JUIF and the coalition partners eventually?
I don't think it'll be a rift, but you see, when you have 11 parties who are part of the PDM, we do understand that different parties have different point of views, and they feel something is not right. But let's see, never say never. Maybe tomorrow, if some fruitful result comes out from the talks from the third round, maybe Maulana Saab might be convinced. So like, okay, look, I was of the opinion the talk shouldn't be taken place, but in retrospect, now that the talks did take place, I reevaluate my decision, or my assessment that it would be in vain. It did turn out fruitful, so yeah, I'm on board. So I'm saying it's too soon. It's too early to say what will happen with that. But again, I want to come back to what my friend from PTI had said. He said that if a caretaker setup in Punjab and KP should not be giving the budget. But at the same time, even if we were to listen to the PTI and dissolve the assemblies, all of them, before the 14th, still the caretaker setup would be giving the budget. It won't be
That's
elected
correct.
representatives. So there's a flaw in his logic. So just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. And with regards to what we've been hearing about the constitutional provision as well, that possibly if the talks fail, there could be a delay for a year as per constitutional provision. I want to understand whether or not this is being something that is seriously being looked at by the coalition partners, because there seems to be a strategy in place by the PTI. What is the way forward for the PDM or the coalition partners if the talks fail? Is it the constitutional provision that Mr. Hassan Iqbal was referring to?
Look, there's always options which we can avail, and there are always possibilities in politics, but that will be the last resort. We just want to amicably come to consensus for the sake of the country. We don't want further, disintegration. We don't want the country to suffer, the people to suffer. And I think PDM is on board with elections happening in October, like it should be happening. And I think if you see the leadership for all the major parties, Maryam Nawaz Sharif recently gave a statement saying the elections will happen in October, no matter what. If the fails, if the talks even if the talks fail, they will happen in October, and everyone wants that. So I don't think that's an issue. But I think Mr. Khan should be patient. I think we were very patient with him for the past 4 years, where he was busy making a mess out of everything. So I think he should just be patient and wait for elections, which are due anyways in a month or two, and not act like a crybaby.
All right. Ms. Batool, there's also, of course, what the PTI chief has said with regards to the judges of the Apex Court, and he's, in a televised address, appealed to the 15 judges of the Apex Court and has asked them to unite for the sake of the Constitution and uphold the Constitution. And it's important the role that the judiciary is going to play, and with the kind of rifts that we've seen within the judiciary, and then, of course, with the judiciary and the parliament as well. But what sort of options can then possibly exist, not just in legal terms, but for the political parties to actually go to the court and for the judges to actually get together with regards to the Constitution? How will they help in the current scenario? Because it has been made clear by the Parliament and by the Chief Justice as well that they are not imposing upon the political parties for the negotiations. It's a suggestion or a direction that has come from the court with regards to upholding the Constitution.
See, if we look at it very deeply, we have to understand that this happened because there has been a lot of legal lacunas from the last 1 year, whether it's 63A, whether it's Article 5, whether it's who will give or announce the date of elections, or whether the interim government can work above 90 more days or not. These are the questions that we have seen, and we are asking for these answers for the first time in the history of Pakistan. And unfortunately, instead of making things simpler, they are getting complicated, and we are not getting the right answers. Whether it's the debate between the who is more powerful, the parliamentary leader or the president of the party, we have seen an closed-ended open-ended conversations. They were not result-oriented at all. What I see as a journalist, that the most important institutions, mm, Parliament is supreme. There's no doubt about it. But when it comes to this particular scenario that we are in, I think Supreme Court can play its role. The position of the Supreme Court became questionable because the rift, their disagreements, they came out. And when something is out publicly, you have to have this courage and this moral authority to answer if you're questioned. And the polarization within the court is very much visible. It is exposed, unfortunately. If the suggestion is coming out, even from Imran Khan or any other leader, that all the judges sit together and they try to create consensus or any on any bigger issue, just to reflect this opinion that this particular thing is going to be for the interest of the country. And what exactly is the interest of the country right this very moment is the unity that we are not seeing in any institution of Pakistan. This is very discouraging. When I say any, the institutions that are answerable, I'm talking about judiciary, I'm talking about parliament. Even when we used to debate on the election issue, the position of election commission became very it became very questionable. At one point, election commission has this, it had this power that it could go back to Supreme Court and and ask for help using Article 245 or Article 190, but it did not do it. We could see a sheer political influence, and the date was not announced, or there was another debate that we got involved in. I believe that if there is a full court, at least there will be a little clarity. At least the pressure of being polarized will be diminished. I think court can
Right,
help us out.
but do you see
I
the
don't think
possibility
so.
of that
This
actually
is going to
happening?
happen.
Because so far this is not something that the courts are moving towards.
Yes, unfortunately, unfortunately, but on the other hand, if we look at the politicians, if they will not do anything conclusive through negotiations, what will happen? They will have to go back to court. Court will call them because it is the court that has pushed them to talk to each other. And at the same time, it is very disappointing that they keep saying that on TV, that why court can push us to talk. Can you believe it? Can you believe it that we are living in a country where the leaders in a democratic setup, they're not willing to talk, even even
But
if
of
it's
course,
requested
the
or
idea
forced
is
by
that it is the
court.
parliament which is the right floor for the negotiations to happen, and not for any other institution to
But I think
direct
Parliament
the
can
politicians
set
to
an
do that.
example.
That's the
I
argument.
totally believe that. I totally get your argument. But I think Parliament can set an example that we respect a judiciary, we respect this institution, and we are going to conduct elections. And after that, we will implement
Absolutely,
the
but right
judicial
now I think
reforms
that there are
that
numerous
have become
question
law
marks that
already.
are being raised to the moral authority of the courts, as well as, of course, has been put forward by different resolutions of the parliament and the statements coming in from the parliamentarians regarding the decision making. So it's all a question mark with regards to the bench's formation and the decision of a minority or a majority. And of course, much remains to be seen as to whether or not this is going to be proceeded with. But Mr. Ali Rashid, my last question to you with regards to the talks is surrounding what is being said regarding PTI's possible return to the National Assembly as well. And it seems that there was a hint of this being part of the discussion and part of the proposal also that the coalition partners have given to the PTI. What sort of possibility do you think exists for that to happen at this point, of course, with whether or not this may be something that will shift stances?
Well, I think if they want to come back to the National Assembly, it's welcome. I think it's a very good decision if they do. I think initially they didn't want to be part of the National Assembly. They tried to dissolve it. Then they went to court to have their resignations accepted. Then they went to court to have their resignations reinstated back. The denotified MNAs wanted to be back in parliament. So it's been very confusing. They've been giving us very mixed signals, right, to the people of Pakistan and other political parties. Seem like they're very confused themselves. So if they want to come, it's
But
welcome. Things
whether
will be
they want
stable.
it or not, what is the stance of the PTM?
I think PDM is all right with it. I think if they want to come, we have no issues with it. If there are no legal hitches or legal issues with the fact that they've resigned, or if the courts don't have any issues with it, I don't think if everything's constitutional and everything's by the book, the PDM has no issues with it. Certainly
All
not.
right. With regards to the 14th of May, there's also, of course, the Supreme Court's orders. I understand that the Parliament has refused with regards to the transfer of funds and other issues that have been pointed out regarding the decision. But in case the talks fail, do you think that there is going to be some sort of legal move by the coalition partners regarding the 14th May order, or will that be refused outright?
I think they have reserved the legal right to, to go forward with any legal position they want, the PDM, and I think we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I feel that at this time, I think PTI and the PDM coalition partner should just reason it out, and I think because it's helping nobody, because PTI is clearly frustrated. PDM is also not the happiest because they're not getting to focus on the work. It's causing them disturbances. The public is also not happy. The country is suffering. So it's everybody's losing. So if we come to consensus with PTI and PDM come to terms and consensus, it will be a win-win situation for everybody. So I hope,
Absolutely.
and yeah, that works out.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Ali Rashid, for joining us. Thank you very much, Ms. Batool, Rajput, for being a part of the discussion as well. That's all that we have from the debate. Of course, there's going to be more development tomorrow with the final round between the PTA and the opposition. Whether or not it is, in fact, the final round and what sort of negotiation is going to take place still, of course, remains to be seen. There are huge question marks on both sides, but what we can hope for is that better sense would prevail, and that whatever is being discussed is done so at the priority of the country and its people, and that the decision makers are thinking about only that when they are making their choices. That's all we have from the debate. We'll see you tomorrow.